Hello, everybody, and good morning to those of you who are joining us live this Saturday morning. Thank you for joining us today at this Your Overseas Home webinar, focused today on starting your Spain buying journey. My name is Hannah Armstrong, and I am one of the team here at the Overseas Guides Company, but you may have also come across us as Property Guides or as Your Overseas Home. As a business as a whole, we've been assisting buyers with their European and international property purchases for over 10 years now. What we do is we aim to arm you with all of the valuable resources, help you avoid pitfalls in the process, save some money, and crucially, make it as fun and exciting as possible. Our recent survey of our Spanish buyers told us that 52% of you were looking to retire to Spain permanently. And we're really excited to have you all here today, whether it is that retirement or whether it is a holiday home. We're excited to have you with us to learn about the process and turn your buying dream into a reality. Now, I've got a panel of 6 people with me today who are all experts in this field and are going to share some insights and some industry knowledge with you today. First up, we will hear from Paul Harris of Smart Currency Exchange and Alison Lowther Dakota from Mortgage Matters, who will talk about the budgeting process and how to plan for budget and plan for currency. We'll then think about the property buying part of the journey and how you're going to find that dream home. And we have got Sophie Rodriguez from Casas Manuel and Justin from Property in Spain Group, who are going to talk about the property side of the process. Then once you've found the dream property, what do you need to do next? That's where we will bring in Raquel Perez of Perez Legal, who will talk about the legalities of the buying process and also a little bit of an intro into the new visa and residency requirements that there are in Spain post-Brexit. And lastly, I've got my colleague Neha from the Property Guides team, who's with us today, who will give us a little bit of an insight into how the team at Property Guides can help you. For those of you who are joining us live today on this Saturday morning, if you've got any questions that you want to put to the panelists, please do pop those in on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll aim to answer as many of those as we can for you. We also have some questions for you, a bit of work for you, our listeners today. So if you head to the polls section, again, on the right-hand side of the screen, do answer those polls for us, and we'll try and sort of weave that in and make today's session as applicable as possible. So, without further ado, how do you start your buying journey? Well, with the current COVID travel restrictions, we know that a lot of people are obviously staying at home and aren't able to get out to Spain at the moment. So as Property Guides, we are able to help you start that research and start that planning from home. If you haven't already, we really recommend that you have a look on the Property Guides website, and I'll share the link at the end. We've got these fantastic buying guides for various different countries, and they provide you with loads of useful information and resources. There's step-by-step guides to the process in there and useful checklists and things to make sure that you don't miss anything on there. We've also got a fantastic content team with us who are real experts in the industry. They go out and they write regular blog pieces and articles showing useful bits of insight, latest industry trends, market updates, and things like that. And you can access those all completely free of charge on our website or by subscribing to our Spain newsletter. So you've done your research and planning from home, you've read up, you've got your guides. What do you start thinking about first? Well, most of you will start thinking about your budgeting and thinking about currency and how you're going to turn your pounds into euros to realize your dream to buy in Spain. So first up, I would like to introduce Paul Harris from Smart Currency Exchange, who's going to be talking about the currency side of things today. Now, Paul has been working in the field of foreign exchange for over 10 years now. His team are based here in the UK, and he regularly presents at events like this across the country. So welcome today, Paul. And can I ask you to start by giving us a little bit of background into Smart Currency Exchange and how you and the team can help our listeners today?
Great, thanks, Hannah. Morning, everyone. So yeah, just a little bit of background about Smart. We're a foreign exchange expert and specialist. We've been around in the industry for over 15 years. We're widely respected in the industry as the property specialists and the company that you come to for currency when you are looking at purchasing a property overseas, and supporting you along that journey. We've gained that reputation by helping over 40,000 people in exactly the same situation as yourselves. And where we really add value and help you out in the process, we just help you understand the costs that are associated to actually purchasing the property, and making sure that we keep those costs as low as possible for you when it comes to converting the currency from one currency into euros. The main area that we help you out is in the risk, and I'll talk further this morning about different ways that we can do that as well.
Great, thank you so much, Paul. So we've obviously talked about there this morning about sort of starting the planning and researching from home. How early should the customers start thinking about currency and be getting in touch with you and your colleagues?
I think we would like to talk to you straight away, and we would advise you to talk to us straight away. If you're looking at properties online, or you've spoken to an agent, or you've just been browsing, you'll be looking at a certain type of property. You'll want to know how many bedrooms you've got, what sort of amenities. Does it have a pool? Is it near the beach? But one thing that you'll always have in those searches or in those discussions is a price point. So you'll be looking at a certain type of property at a certain type of price. That's where we can come in, and we can help you understand, if you have a UK sterling budget or whichever currency you're holding, how much that budget can go into euros based on obviously the exchange rates. So yeah, right from the early stages, we can really help you understand the costs and how much you're able to afford over in Spain.
Brilliant, thank you, Paul. That's really helpful. And what different options and sort of different types of transfer can the customers do with you? I assume it's not just sort of a one size fits all.
No, we try and have a bespoke solution and method of transfer for everyone. Everyone's circumstances are completely different, and everyone's requirements obviously completely different as well. Different amounts, different timescales. We do have a few big products that are very popular with this sort of transaction. The main two that people may have heard of if they've done some research are a spot or a forward contract. There's two very big differences between the two. So a spot contract is essentially a quick contract that we would do for you. So you would agree a price today. You send the money to us immediately within 2 to 3 working days. And we transfer the funds out immediately, straight to wherever they need to go. So if that's an agent or a bank account of yours, wherever it needs to go, we'll do that transaction very quickly for you. One thing that's incredibly popular with our clients that are looking to purchase a property is the forward contract. So say, for example, you're speaking to an agent, you're over in Spain or doing a virtual tour, you agree a price, you fall in love with the property, sign on the dotted line, and you've agreed a price in euros. There may be a little bit of a time between the day you sign and the day you actually complete. Let's say 3 months. We can actually, once you've agreed the price, in euros, that price stays the same. What will always change up until the point of completion and where you transfer the funds is how much that's going to cost you in sterling or whichever currency you hold. So that's where we can come in with a potential forward contract for you. If you agreed the price in euros and the exchange rate is a rate that you're happy with today, we can agree and fix that exchange rate for you today. And you don't have to pay for the full contract until that completion date. The way that works slightly differently is we would buy all the currency for you and hold it for you. You pay a 10% deposit, which is not a fee. It's just 10% of the total contract. And on completion of that contract, you just pay the remaining balance. If you wanted to pay it up sooner, that's also absolutely fine, and we can transfer sooner for you if you need to. So really, really popular product. Takes away all the risk of potential market drops or market movements, and you have then full peace of mind that you know how much you've agreed in euros, and then you've agreed how much that's going to cost in pound sterling. If we time that right for you, potentially we can make the property more cost effective for you, which could go towards potential future renovations, or you just saved a little bit of extra money on the actual property purchase. 2 other options that we have for you, both very closely linked to each other, and we can put orders into the market for you. So we have an order to buy, an order to call. 2 very close products, 2 very similar products, but 2 slightly different in the way that they actually work. So say, for example, you've agreed the price today. You know how much that's going to cost in euros, and the exchange rate today isn't quite where you want it to be. You want it to be better. You want the property price to be cheaper. You want the pound to be a bit stronger. Absolutely fine. We can look at targeting a rate that's slightly higher for you, and look at pinpointing a point in the market that isn't quite where we are right now. So if we do that, so for example, the exchange rate today is just over 116, but you really want to trade and transfer your funds at say 118, 119. Absolutely fine. We can put that marker in for you. And if we've set it up as an order to call, as soon as that rate is triggered, we get on the phone to you, let you know that we're now able to get this exchange rate for you. Did you want to proceed? At that point, it's again entirely up to you. If you wanted to wait a little bit longer, fine. Or if you wanted to transact at that rate, great, we can do it for you straight away. The other option was the order to buy. So again, slightly different, but you send the funds to us. We then hold those funds for you. As soon as that exchange rate is hit, we transact. The money goes straight out. You've got the exchange rate you want, and again, that rate is secured for you. So again, peace of mind that you've got exactly the price that you wanted to pay. The most important thing I have to stress with these orders is that it's great. Yes, we can target these rates that are slightly higher. We cannot guarantee them. We are still working from the live exchange rates. So we can only offer those higher prices that you're targeting if the market price gets there. So it does come with a little bit more risk. There's obviously some upside benefit, which is great, but we can never guarantee that it will get there. So for peace of mind, the forward contract does secure you. But if you are looking to potentially achieve a higher exchange rate, that order is definitely an option for you.
That's fantastic, Paul. That sounds like a really brilliant range of services that you can offer there. There are some sort of technical elements and things that you mentioned there. Are your team always on hand to support and sort of talk through all of these different elements and what's best for the customers?
Absolutely, yeah. So when you sign up to an account, I think part of the process to join the webinars is we go through the application process with us. And even if it is very early stages, those of you that have spoken to us, you'll see that what the value that we can add straight away. I think when it comes to the actual speaking to us, once you've signed up to an account, you will be assigned to one account manager. So you'll have one point of contact for the whole journey. So you won't have to keep calling different people, explain the whole situation again, and basically start from scratch. You'll have that one point of contact that will support you through the journey. We work 5 days a week, very early in the morning to late at night. But if you need us over the weekend, drop your account manager an email, and by all means, if they're available, they can get in touch.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Paul. I mean, it's such a comprehensive service that Smart Currency Exchange offer there. And Sue's actually asked a question on that point. She said, what are the fees for using these services from Smart?
We don't charge a fee for any of our transactions. The next question normally is, how do we make our money? So I'll explain that as well. So we make our money in the exchange rate. So the exchange rate that you see online, if you say, for example, if you went to Google now and typed in, for example, sterling to GBP to euro, you'll see the exchange rate online. That's what we call the market price, or the interbank price. It's where the banks will typically transact money together. Our rates will always be slightly different to that, and we make our money between the two. But the rate that we offer for you is always going to be firm. There's not going to be any hidden fees or charges on top.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. And Sue, I hope that answers your question. A customer, Paul, has asked, when he makes a transaction with you, does that go into, do you pay it into a Spanish bank account? Do you pay it to his lawyer to complete the purchase? How does that work?
We can send the funds wherever you need us to send them. So if we agree the transaction with you and it needs to go to a solicitor, or you want it to go to a bank account in your name, that's absolutely fine. You just need to instruct us where they need to go, and we will do the rest.
Great, thank you for clarifying, and I hope that answers that question. Jane's also asked a question that if she pays the 10% deposit that you mentioned earlier for one of those forward contracts or something like that, what happens if the circumstances change, her property purchase falls through? What would happen in that situation?
So as I said, we've helped out thousands of people in this situation, and plans do sometimes change. Property purchases will fall through for whatever reason. You might decide that the property's actually not right for you, and contracts do need to be changed or cancelled. If it's a complete cancellation and you're not looking to buy anymore, you've decided actually this isn't right for you, you need to completely cancel the contract. We can do that. If it's a forward contract, we take that 10% deposit in case there are any losses on the contract. Now, if you say you want to cancel, we're not just going to blindly cancel it and say that there's a fee. If there are any charges, we'd let you know, and we try and work with you to make sure that those fees and charges wouldn't be there. The reason there would be potential charges, just to explain, is because we buy on a forward contract, we buy all the euros, and we're holding the euros. If the contract gets cancelled, we sell the euros back. So if there are any losses there, that might be where some funds come out of the deposit. But the trader that your account manager you speak to will always let you know if there are any costs and work with you to try and avoid those at all costs. That's not the service that we want to offer. We don't want to be booking contracts and having losses at all. But if you are looking at still buying and you just wanted to extend the contract, again, absolutely fine. We can roll the contract and extend the contracts on. That's no issue at all.
That's great. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you to everybody who has asked questions there. If there are any questions about your personal specific circumstances, I will share Paul's details at the end of the presentation. And we strongly recommend, as Paul said, that you get in touch with him and his team as early as possible. Now, still thinking about the idea of budget and how much you've got to spend on the property, you may want to think about a mortgage as an option to secure a little bit extra to help you realise that dream. So to discuss the lending options, I'm joined today by Alison, who is an independent mortgage advisor. Alison's fully qualified in the UK and Spain and fully regulated by the Bank of Spain. And for the last 6 years, she has specialised in this field in assisting you to maximise your budget and source your finance for your dream property. So welcome today, Alison. I'd love it if you'd start off by giving us a little bit of a background introduction into you and to the business and how you can support our buyers today.
Sure, yes, delighted, Hannah. Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for inviting me to this event. Very pleased to be taking part. So yes, I am Alison de Corta and my company is Mortgage Matters Spain. I've actually been in Spain for 20 years, so I'm fluent in Spanish, which is important when you're dealing with the banks, not only to be able to communicate with them, obviously, but also to understand the culture and the risk analysis techniques that they use, how the systems work, etc. So yes, I'm well placed to be able to communicate with them. So we're independent, which means that we don't work for any one bank. We have agreements with all of the major banks here in Spain. We give them good quality business. So basically, I won't send in any applications that I don't think I'll be able to get a mortgage for. So they know that I've already qualified the clients that I've given them. Plus, I give them a good volume of business. So I'm able to negotiate some better rates and some decent terms and conditions. I'm glad that you pointed out about qualifications. Obviously, regulation is very important, especially these days. I'm fully qualified in the UK, so I'm a fully qualified UK mortgage broker, and I'm a fully qualified Spanish mortgage broker as well. Spain brought in some new regulations in line with the EU in 2019. So anybody that you're speaking to these days, whether it be an independent broker or someone in the banks, they all need to be fully qualified to be able to give you proper advice. So background, I've always been in finance. I've worked for some large corporates. I worked for Credit Suisse. I worked for Société Générale. I worked for Banco Santander. So my background has always been finance. I've been specialising for the last 6 years in helping mostly foreign clients throughout the world, to be honest, because it's not just the British that are buying. It's many nationalities. You'd be surprised at some of the nationalities that want to buy in Spain. So yes, helping foreign clients to set up their finance and also just help them through the whole process, which can be completely different to buying in your own country, and certainly the finance side of things is different as well. And I set up Mortgage Matters Spain 2.5 years ago, and here we are, happy to help anyone that needs any assistance with finance over here.
Thank you, Alison. That's a great introduction. That's really helpful. So if I could ask you to sort of start by just giving us a really brief introduction to the sort of mortgage process. You know, how early would a customer need to start thinking about this process?
It's a good idea to try and get your finance sorted out before you come out to Spain, because what you don't want to do is come over, view a property, fall in love with something, sign a contract, and then say, oh my goodness, I need some finance. So it is a good idea to sort things out before you come. And I can, in fact, get a full approval for clients before they even find their property and before they've even travelled over. And in fact, that's what I've been doing for the last few months whilst most people have been confined and sitting at home looking at properties on the internet. I've actually, knowing that they want to come out as soon as the restrictions are lifted, they want to come over. So I've spent a lot of time sorting out finance for clients who haven't even been over to Spain yet, haven't even found the property yet, because we can do that, and it gives them a lot more confidence when they do come out. They know exactly what their budget is. They know they've got their finance in the back pocket. So they're in a very strong position to put in an offer if they do find something. So I would recommend that you start before you come over, definitely, because it, as I say, it puts you in a much stronger position if you're wanting to put in an offer. So basically the process starts with a phone call with me. So I will go through the main points with the clients, tell them exactly how much cash they require, talk about the costs that are involved, give some general information about what they can borrow, look at their financial scenario, and give them a good idea of what I think we can achieve. Once I've seen some more detailed information on their financial profile, then at that point I'll prepare a full report and list of documents which I'll send over. Once I have received all of the documents from the client, and I stress I won't send anything in until I've got a full application ready, I will submit it to the various banks, and they will usually come back to me 10 days to 2 weeks after that with an approval, subject to valuation, because they will want the property to be valued. So the next step then is to get the property valued. Once that's done, we get the valuation report in, and at that point the bank then can issue the binding offer. So we've got the binding offer, we're ready to go. 10 days has to pass before you can complete by law. So they've got the 10-day cooling off period, just as you would have in the UK. I think it's 7 days in the UK, but here it's 10 days. And then we can complete after that. Now, if everything goes smoothly, the whole process can take between 6 to 8 weeks, I would say, roughly from beginning to end. So that's an idea of the process.
Fantastic, thank you, Alison. I realise it's a lot to ask you to go through in a short amount of time. Now, looking at the polls that we sent out to the audience to ask this morning, and the majority of people have actually said that their sort of biggest worry when it comes to mortgage is, the value of the property and how much the bank would lend versus the value of the property. Can you give any indication? I know it does depend on specific circumstances, but sort of any indication of that kind of loan to value rate that people could expect?
Sure. The maximum that the banks will lend to non-residents is 70%. That's the maximum. It doesn't mean to say we can definitely get 70% for all clients. Obviously, it depends on your financial profile. Now, with Brexit having happened last year, some of the banks have limited that now to 60%. Because they consider now the Brits to be non-Europeans. Having said that, if you do have a strong profile, I can still achieve 70%. So I do still have banks that will go up to 70% for British clients as well. So work on having therefore a deposit of between 30 and 40% plus enough cash to cover all of the costs that are involved cash-wise. That's approximately what you need to have in your pocket. Okay.
That's very helpful advice. Thank you so much, Alison. Now, one of our viewers today, Sarah, has asked if you can give any indication as to the sorts of interest rates that she could expect to pay.
Sure. I mean, obviously, the rate, the bank rate that's used in Spain is Euribor, which is negative and has been since 2016. You'd be looking at minus 0.4 at the moment for Euribor, 12-month Euribor. And what they do is on a variable rate, they'll give you a margin over Euribor. So at the moment, on a variable rate, you'd be looking at around about 2 to 2.5% over Euribor, which takes your rate to around about 2%, something like that on a variable rate. If you were looking for a fixed rate, not all of the banks will do fixed rates for non-residents. But if we go to a bank that does a fixed rate, the difference between how things are done in the UK and how things are done in Spain is that they will fix the rate for the full term. So if we get a 20-year mortgage for you, they will give you a fixed rate for 20 years. So it's not like in the UK where you get it fixed for 2 to 5 years and then you go out and find another deal. No, here they will fix the rate for the full term, which is good. If you want to know exactly what you're going to be paying over the next 20 years and you're going to keep the mortgage for 20 years and not pay it off early, you might want to think about a fixed rate. So indication on fixed rates around about 3%, 3.25, something like that.
That's brilliant. That's really helpful advice. Thank you so much, Alison.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's 52% of our Spain buyers as a whole that we work with that have said recently in a survey that they are looking to retire to Spain. And something that's come out of that conversation as well is people have sort of said, you know, are there any age limits or limits on the term of the mortgage that the banks would impose?
Yes, there are both. So as a general rule, the banks will lend up to the age of 70. If you do have a very, very strong pension pot and can prove that you know, you're going to get some very good income once you are fully retired, we can maybe squeeze them to a little bit longer than 70. The other option, if clients are a little bit older and they do want a longer term mortgage, what I can offer them is that if they want to include their children on the mortgage, they could do that. So they could include one of the children who's maybe earning in the UK and, you know, who is fine to come on, and we can take into account their income as well. And then we can do an average age, so we can make the term a bit longer. And then as far as term is concerned, most of the banks will do maximum 20. I've got one or two that will go up to 25, or for younger clients, they might even go up to 30. I did manage to do a 30-year term for one, but mostly we'll do up to 20 years. So basically, if you're 50 or younger, we can do a 20-year mortgage for you, no problem. If you're a bit older, we can possibly squeeze a bit longer for you.
Great, really good advice. Thank you so much, Alison. I think we've probably got time for sort of one more question, and I know this is quite an important one, and this might also loop into some of what Raquel is going to talk about later. But what paperwork would people need when they were applying for a mortgage? What, you know, people can start getting things like that ready at home. So what do they need to be preparing?
Yeah, I mean, documentation-wise, it's not that dissimilar to what the banks in the UK would ask you for, because what they're looking to see is affordability. So they'll want to see proof of income, and how would they prove your income? So if you're self-employed, they'll want to see tax returns over the last 2 years. If you have a company, then company accounts over the last 2 years. If you're employed, then we're looking at payslips and P60s. And then the usual things like bank statements over the last 6 months. Credit report, which is important because they want to know exactly what level of debt you've got back home, because they will take that into account when they're doing the analysis of the affordability. And then obvious things like the passport and proof of address, things like that. So not too different in fact, pretty much the same as what you would be asked for in the UK if you were applying for a loan.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Alison. Now, we have had a few questions in from customers today about their real particular circumstances relating to, you know, their income and values of properties. I will share Alison's details at the end, and I do recommend that you get in touch directly for any of those specific queries. But for now, we are going to move on to the next step in the buying journey. So thank you, Alison, for your time. The next step you're going to think about, and I must say this is the really, really exciting part, is obviously which property you're going to purchase. So whilst you're at home at the moment and whilst you're unable to travel, and hopefully we'll be able to get on a plane soon, but at the moment, whilst you're doing your research from home, I do recommend you take a look at the Property Guides portal on our website. We've got a fantastic array of properties across Spain. Just, you know, one example there on screen, but lots of beautiful properties that you can have a look at on our website. But I am joined by two experts. First up, we're going to hear from Sophie from Casas Manuel, and next up we've got Justin from Property in Spain Group. So first off, I will hand over to Sophie. Now, Sophie joined the family business in 2006, along with the rest of her family, and Casas Manuel cover the south of the Costa Blanca and down to Costa Calida. So welcome today, Sophie. First off, as I have with the others, can I ask you to give us a little bit of background information into Casas Manuel and how they as a business can help our listeners today?
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. So I'm joining you today from our Benihoffer office here on the Costa Blanca South. And we actually have two offices. We've got the Benihoffer one in the Vega Baca area. And then we've also got another office in La Zenia, which is on the Orihuela Costa. So yes, I joined the company back in 2006. I work alongside my parents, my husband, my sister, and the rest of our sales team here. And we are able to offer you both new build and resale properties throughout the Costa Blanca South and down into the Costa Calida area as well.
Thank you, Sophie. That's a brilliant intro. Now, I'm sure you get asked this a lot, and I know it's difficult depending on people's circumstances. But as an indication for the listeners today, are you able to tell us, what a sort of perhaps average budget of say €200,000 could potentially get customers in the area that you cover?
Yeah, so €200,000, that's a really good, healthy budget. Now, if you're going to be looking down on the Orihuela Costa, you would be looking at getting resale-wise, probably a end 3-bedroom townhouse with communal pool access. If you're looking more in the Vega Baca area, places like Benimar, Benihoffer, Quesada, then you will probably be able to get a 2-bed, 2-bath detached villa with its own pool. Now, if you are going to be looking at the new build market, down on the coast, that would probably get you a 2-bedroom apartment, whereas up here in the Vega Baca area, we would be looking at a 3-bedroom new build apartment for that budget.
That's great, really helpful insight there. Thank you so much. And in terms of the community in the area, is it quite a strong expat community? You recommend it for Brits and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Spain is famous in general for its expat community, especially with the Brits, not just the Costa Blanca, but, all the Costas in general. Now, in the two areas that we do cover, the Orihuela Costa, the majority of people who live there, they are expats, whether they're Brits or from Belgium, Holland, wherever. There is a big percentage of expats living down there. So you won't find any trouble going out and coming across your English bars, restaurants. And, there's always English clubs going on, golf clubs, cycling groups, things like that. And then up in the Vega Baca area, we are like a group of small Spanish villages, kind of in a cluster. And then on the outskirts, we've got urbanizations like Quesada, La Marina, Benimar. So in those urbanizations, you will come across lots of expats. But because we've got the villages so close by, you still have that feeling that you are in real Spain, so to speak. So you have the opportunity, if you do want to integrate into more of a Spanish way of life and, go out in the morning, get your coffee and tostada and have a little conversation in Spanish, you are able to do that up in this area. So one of the things that I really think is great about the Costa Blanca South is, whatever it is you're looking for, we do have different areas which will suit everybody's needs.
Thank you. That's really helpful advice. We really love hearing about the sort of local knowledge and insight that you've got there. And that leads me nicely on to the next question. I have mentioned that quite a lot of the listeners and quite a lot of our customers are looking to retire to Spain, but we do know that some people are looking at relocation with families. Do you have any areas that you particularly recommend that are good if people are moving out with kids?
Well, I've got 3 children myself. So, I always come across clients who are relocating with families. And I think it's really good when they do come to us, we can help them, talking about schools and different areas. I think the main thing that people have to think about is, do they want their kids to integrate into the Spanish way of lifestyle? Because if they do, then it would probably be better coming to the Vega Baca area. If they're not as concerned about that part of the move and they want to make sure that they're around English people, they're worried about them learning Spanish, then again, it would probably be better to look more down on the Orihuela Costa area. But when we've got people moving over with a family, we do understand, you know, it's a really big decision. So we will go into an in-depth conversation with each and every one and try and figure out things like work, what are you going to do, what does the whole family want to achieve by this move, and then we will discuss different areas with them.
That's brilliant. That's really useful advice. Thank you. Thanks so much, Sophie. I wanted to ask about cost of living and things like that. So can you give us an idea perhaps how, you know, utility bills or, you know, the equivalent perhaps of council tax or management fees or anything like that? Can you give us a sort of typical monthly cost that customers might need to, you know, look out for and budget for?
Sure. So I don't think water and electric is any more expensive or much cheaper than in the UK, to be honest. I think the main difference is that, you know, we do have a much more outdoor lifestyle here. So we're not using the utilities as much as you probably would back in the UK. So over like a yearly estimate, you would probably balance that out by staying in a little bit more in the colder winter months, but then in the summer you're out more on the beach, out in bars and restaurants at the local fiestas. So I don't think that you would find a great difference in water and electric costs, if I'm honest. In terms of council tax payments, we have a tax called the SUMA tax, and that is a lot cheaper than the council tax equivalent back in the UK. So, for example, if you were going to buy a 2-bedroom apartment in Formentera, for example, for around €65,000, you'd be looking at around €200 a year for the SUMA bill, which, you know, is nothing really. And then on a bigger budget of, say, €300,000 for a villa, you would be looking at around €600 a year. So again, you know, a bit more, but still a big saving in comparison to the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, you've obviously got a really comprehensive service that you offer, and you talked there about, you know, really understanding people's buying needs and getting the best area for them. One of our viewers today, Sue, has asked, do you charge any fees to the buyers who are purchasing properties through Casas Manuel?
Absolutely not, no. We get paid by the vendor, by the seller. So even if you come to us and we take you out and, you know, you don't find a property, you don't get charged. And if you do buy through us, we are paid by the selling party always.
Brilliant, thank you. And lastly, Sophie, whilst we've got you on the line today, I really just want to delve into your local knowledge of the area one more time and just ask, are there sort of any new developments, any real up and coming areas, any, you know, very sort of on trend places, anything like that that you'd recommend in your area that you'd suggest that the customers sort of keep an eye out for?
I mean, we are seeing a lot of new builds getting built at the moment throughout the coast. But just to give you an example, today I'm here in the Benihoffer office, and, you know, going back 10 years ago, this was just a little sleepy Spanish village with not a lot really going on. And today you come here and on the outskirts there's been a lot of development in terms of houses being built. But one of the great things is we're also seeing money being spent in the infrastructure. So we're seeing new commercial centres going up, and throughout last year's lockdown, one of the commercial centres got finished off, and a lot of us thought, oh, you know, I hope that we get businesses in there. And today it's full. We've got new bars and restaurants. We're seeing a new supermarket coming in. We're even seeing people like McDonald's coming onto the coast in a bit more inland. So there is a lot of building and new development going on throughout the coast and the Vega Baja area.
Brilliant. And would you recommend that customers, you know, have a car if they're relocating, or is it quite easily to navigate around the area with public transport?
I would say if you can get a car, public transport here isn't great. It's not like the UK at all. You know, going back a few years, you could wait hours to find a bus here in the Vega Baja. Things are improving, but they do still have, you know, a bit of a way to go in terms of public transport. If you can, you know, I would say get a car, and there are companies over here that will take out expats, like a bit like a driving school for expats to get them used to the Spanish roads and things like that.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophie, for all of your helpful insight there.
You're welcome.
As with everybody, we will share Sophie's details for her and the team afterwards, so you can get in touch directly if you think that this area is for you, and it certainly sounds wonderful, and we will be sure to share those details. So moving further south now and heading down to the Costa del Sol, we're joined today by Justin from the Property in Spain group. Now, Justin's lived on the Costa del Sol for 20 years and specialises in the coastal market down there, so he's really well placed to answer queries today. So Justin, just as I've asked our other panelists today, if you could give us a little bit of background into Property in Spain Group as a business and how you can help our viewers today.
Certainly. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Property in Spain Group, we're split into two divisions. So I look after the coast, and Nikki, who owns the company, she looks after the inland divisions. So areas that are typically 15 to 30 minutes from the beach will be managed by Nikki, and they're typically our fincas, and I look after the coast. Over the last 20 years, I've helped numerous clients source resales and new development properties, but also we can look at acquiring a plot and doing a set build, so we can meet with architects and lawyers and make sure we have all the right licensing in place so client can build to their exact requirements. And also more recently, over the last probably 3 or 4 years, renovations have become much more popular. So therefore we can help clients with renovations, and that will also require licensing as well. It's not the same as in the UK where you can simply start work on a property. In most municipalities, you will need a license, and it's very, very easy to obtain from the town hall, but you will need a license, for example, for putting a skip outside, just to take some of the rubble out. So whether you're looking for a resale, a new build, or we're looking at a renovation or a complete new build from scratch, we can help clients on the coast and inland as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Justin. Now, similarly to the question I asked Sophie earlier, we said, you know, what would 200,000 euros typically get you in Sophie's area on sort of South Costa Blanca? Same question to you. What would 200,000 euros get our listeners on the Costa del Sol?
Typically, and it's like anywhere in the world, the closer you are to the main attractions, the more expensive a property will be. To be honest, 200,000, you're in the 2 and 3 bedroom apartment bracket, and you can consider anywhere on the coast for that budget. It just means that you will potentially in certain areas be slightly further back from the town, or maybe slightly further away from the beach. So for example, the areas that are closer to the airport, so Fuengirola, Benalmádena, Torremolinos, Mías Costa, we can source properties there for 200,000. It will typically, as I say, be a 2-bed apartment. There may be a possibility of a townhouse, but quite simply, depending on how large the property is and the client requirements, if you want to include views and you must have a sea view, then we have to make a few sacrifices, and we may have to move a little bit further back from the beach in order to basically satisfy the client's budget. But all the way along the Costa del Sol, a 200,000 budget will enable you to purchase an apartment. And as a contrast to the more popular areas, and that's basically purely because they've been closer to the airport, so they've been very, very popular areas for Northern Europeans, and especially British, for the last 30, 40 years plus, would be Torremolinos, Benalmádena, Fuengirola. If we made a comparison on a 200,000 budget and we went down the other end of the coast, which is Estepona, basically towards Gibraltar, then a 200,000 budget will get you sometimes beachside, but it can get you 100 meters from the beach with a great sea view, and you'd have a much larger apartment as well, and probably newer than you would if you were closer to the airport. So we can cater for all budgets, and it just very much depends on the client's requirements. The more requirements you add in, the more tricky it gets. It's the same as anywhere else. But the Costa del Sol has options for all budgets, and if we were looking inland, for example, around the 150 to 200,000 budget, if you're looking inland, then you have a whole raft of apartments and townhouses which will either be brand new or renovated. But you can also look at detached properties. 150 to 200,000, you will really struggle getting a detached property closer to the coast. But inland, that's a possibility. So that would be a finca, that would be a country house, a country property. The only thing I would say from an inland perspective, when it comes to a detached property at that price point, we do just have to be a little bit more careful about the legalities of the property and to check the title deeds to make sure that everything's in order. 200 to 250 plus, we generally find that we have a lot more choice of properties that are registered. So there's just a little bit of caution. But Nikki's lived in Coin, which is about 20-25 minutes from the beach. She's lived there for 21 years. So she can walk clients through that side of things without any problem at all.
Brilliant. That's fantastic advice, Justin. Thank you so much for that. What's your sense of what's happened to the market? I mean, we've obviously had, you know, an incredibly, you know, changing year with COVID, with Brexit. Have either of those sort of major events had any massive implication on the Costa del Sol market and the prices there?
Not on the prices. I mean, obviously, general life, yes. A lot of businesses, friends of mine that have got restaurants, for example, anyone that's in the hospitality industry will have been suffering, and so is everyone all around the world. But with respect to prices and property, the majority of people do think that because the market has been very, very limited for the last 12 months, they think that the prices have actually come down and it's time to get a bargain. Unfortunately, that really could not be further from the truth. We have a huge amount of interest at the moment from Northern Europeans. I'm seeing an awful lot more interest, more than I have at any point in the last 20 years, from Americans and Canadians as well. So with respect to prices, the prices haven't been dropping. There are always, on every coastline in every country of the world, there's always a nice bargain to be had here or there. And if you're lucky enough to get that, fine. And that's what we'll always try and source for our clients. But in general, no, prices are not dropping. Developers and vendors, they are fully aware of the demand that's out there. We have a finca, for example, and there's a lot of interest for the coast, there's a lot of interest for inland. But we've got a finca, and the client's got had seven interested parties that had virtual viewings and appointments for as soon as they could fly out. Unfortunately, due to demand, a client purchased on the virtual tour because they were very, very familiar with that area. So demand is really high, and there are a lot of overseas buyers that are purchasing via a virtual tour. So with all of that in mind, and with the fact that there is a huge wave of especially Northern Europeans looking to come down, a lot of them have arrived already. In the last week, I was down on the promenade, and you can just hear Dutch voices, Scandinavians. There's an awful lot of French here as well. But we're waiting for that huge wave of Brits to come over, which hopefully will be very soon. So it has not affected prices in a negative way for the majority of the costas. And demand is extremely high. So that's really encouraging, although obviously we're all looking forward to actually getting back to work and meeting our customers and taking them out to buy their properties.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you, Justin. Now, one of the listeners today, Robert, has asked, could you give some advice on what sort of are the up and coming areas, you know, any regeneration or new developments that we should keep an eye out, particularly in this context? Robert is looking for sort of an investment opportunity.
The Costa del Sol has been very, very well established for a long time. So our infrastructure is very good. When I came here 20 years ago, they were opening up the areas from Marbella down to Estepona with the new dual carriageway and with the motorway. So those areas, as I say, again, have been popular for a long time. And there's constant upgrades to infrastructures and lighting and roads and that kind of thing. But in particular, Estepona is top of an awful lot of people's lists, especially the investors. Now, over the last 7 years, Estepona Town Hall has invested nearly 100 million into Estepona's infrastructure. So that's improved parking, improved lighting, improved roads. The promenade was fantastic anyway, but they've revamped the promenade, they've made improvements to the marina. And off of the back of that, developers are concentrating really, really heavily on the Estepona area. So Estepona stands out like a sore thumb. And it's not just from an investment point of view, it's from a lifestyle point of view as well. I'll give you a very, very quick comparison. I mean, a lot of the Northern Europeans, the Scandinavians, the Dutch, the Belgians, they're all looking at those areas as well. And for a lot of people, especially when it's a lifestyle choice, as well as investment, it just makes sense. You can go and have lunch in Estepona, and I took my niece when she was over here in June last year. We went and had lunch in Estepona, and we were in the main square, and we had quite a lot of tapas, a couple of bottles of water, and it was like €9. If I go and have breakfast or have a breakfast meeting in Marbella, I live in Benaves, which is next to Marbella, I can be in a nothing special cafe, but I can have breakfast where I can have a coffee, a slice of cake and a bottle of water, and that'll cost me €15 just for me. So people are understanding where value is. Estepona does give you a very real Spain feel, because it's a very popular Spanish town. The majority of the population is Spanish, which means that it's busy all year round, which is a really important factor for a lot of people that do want to live here. But from an investment perspective as well, it's ticking all the boxes, basically because it has the qualities of what everyone looks for on a holiday home or an investment, but the price point is just that much lower than other parts of the coast. And for an extra 20 minutes drive or an extra 20 minutes in a taxi, for the majority of people, that's not an issue. So Estepona is one of the main areas at the moment where we're seeing and have seen a huge amount of investment in infrastructure.
That's great. Thank you, Justin. Now, one last question for you. I'm conscious of the time. I feel we could all talk all day, and there's so much to talk about on this. 25% of people who answered our survey earlier that we did said that they were looking for a holiday home. And a lot of people have said that they're looking to be able to rent that out to other holiday makers. How practical or easy is it to rent a holiday home out?
It's very straightforward. There are a number of holiday rental companies, and I would generally suggest someone to look at a specialist or people that have got experience with that. But there's a number of options up and down the coast where you can appoint a holiday rental company. They'll manage your property for you. They will obviously get heads on pillows. They will do the changeovers. They will hold the keys. They will look after the property if there's any issues and get anything fixed if it's broken. It doesn't really matter where you are on the Costa del Sol. There are companies that can cater for that, can completely look after your property. Typically, they will charge between 15 and 20% of that weekly fee as a commission. But there are no on-top charges for marketing that's included in their fee. And they will typically be on all the big holiday sites. So there's loads of options, and it's a very straightforward process.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your help and advice there, Justin. As with everybody, we'll share Justin's details at the end of the presentation, and we recommend, if Costa del Sol is the area for you, you certainly get in touch with him and the team. But moving on to the next step in the buying process, and we will, we don't want to keep you too long this morning, but we want to move on to the next step, and we're joined now by Raquel of Perez Legal, all the way from the Costa del Sol again this morning. Now, Raquel's worked in this industry for over 20 years and is an absolute expert in supporting expats in both the legal side of their purchases, but also in the new visa and residency processes. Now, we've got a lot of questions for you, Raquel, this morning, but first off, can I ask you to just give a little bit of an introduction into what you do and how you can support our listeners?
Of course. Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is well. As you said, we have been in this world for 26 years, quickly. We are lawyers and chartered accountants. We specialize on relocating British clients into Spain and international clients in general. We also liaise with driving licenses, residency applications, NI numbers, direct debits, opening bank account. So we've got all the services you can imagine under the same company. We work in any part of Spain, and yes, we processed last year more than 800 residency applications for clients becoming resident in Spain, moving to Spain. We also check rental contracts in case you're going to be renting in the first place, etc. So we offer, like you said, one-stop shop service. As we understand that every client has a different situation, we also offer 30 minutes consultation by a Zoom meeting or video phone call, or WhatsApp phone call, to understand what you need and inform properly of your situation.
Thanks, Raquel. That's a fantastic introduction. So we'll start a little bit about the actual property buying process. And can we ask you to give advice on how long that process should typically take, from finding the right property to having the keys in their hands?
Yes. Well, the process normally, if everything goes according to plan, it means that we have completed the legal searches and everything is correct. It can take up to 40-45 days. I mean, I really strongly recommend that even before you're coming, to get organized with, especially the power of attorney, which any law firm will need a specific power of attorney, NI number, and a Spanish bank account. These three things are very important to get ready before even you're coming, I mean, even before you are searching properties. So in Spain, the procedure of buying a property is very different to the UK. First of all, you will be requested a deposit by the vendor. You don't go directly to completion like in the UK. It's divided actually in three steps. One is the deposit that will ask you to send us to our law firm bank account. We will withhold it until we complete the legal searches of the property. We provide the legal searches report, then we go into 10% down payment, which is within 2 weeks after the deposit has been released. And then the final step is the completion, which it's the handing over the property takes place, and then you become the title deed holder of the property.
Thank you. And can we ask, what are the typical fees that a customer would need to pay, both in terms of the legal fees that they would pay you, but also any buying or transfer taxes or anything like that?
Yes, as an overall cost, I would say that you should count with a budget of 12-13% on top of the purchase price, but that depends very much on the area you're buying. Probably you know that Spain has 17 regions, and for example, the transfer tax is not the same in Costa Blanca that in Costa del Sol, Andalusia region. For example, if you're buying Costa del Sol, now it has been reduced to 7%, when in Costa Blanca is 10%. Or in the islands, for example, is 6.5%. So very much depending what you're buying, and also resales has a different budget to count on top of the purchase price as a new property. New properties, you have to pay 10% VAT on top of the purchase price, and then a stamp duty 1.5%, plus notary fees and registry fees, legal fees, which is normally 0.8%, 1%. So very much depends whether the property is off plan and whether it's a resale property, and also on the region. But just to be quite accurate on the budget, you should count, yes, with 12-13% on top of the purchase price. Also, inland properties probably will request an architect report done by an architect, so you need to count with that cost as well, which normally it's between 600 and 800 euros for an architect report. Which will help us as well, putting all the legal searches together to find out in which situation is the property.
That's great advice. Thank you, Raquel. Now, we've had a question in from a customer, Sarah, who's listening today, who's just said, you know, they have unfortunately heard horror stories of purchasing new build properties where, you know, there hasn't been the right planning permissions, or you know, the land hasn't had the right ownership, issues like that. How can you help customers avoid any possible pitfalls like that?
Well, obviously, it's very important that the first thing you should do is to hire a lawyer, employ a lawyer who speaks your language, like us, and obviously go through all the searches. I mean, my question will be if, in that case, you had a lawyer to get involved with the legal searches of the property. In the case of developments, obviously, we always make sure that the land registry, we got a land registry report of the land, making sure that the land is in the name of the developer's company, as well as the building license is granted, and all the fees to the town who has been paid by the developer's company. Very important, and most important than anything else, is to make sure the developer's company is offering a bank guarantee or an insurance for all the money paid upfront before completion. That is quite important to double check, because the money paid to the developers has to go to a special bank account in which they have to offer a bank guarantee by law that all your money is protected just in case there is a problem in the handing over of the property, or there is a huge delay and you want to cancel because it's taking 1 year more than you expected, etc. And also we do an investigation as well about the company, the developer's company. What is the situation of the developer's company in the company house? So your lawyer you're hiring has to make sure, of course, that before releasing any money, the legal searches are correct, everything is in place, and making sure you don't have any issue. You should also be handed over a specific the conditions in terms of the qualifications of the property you're buying. So what is the quality? What are the tiles they're using? So there is a memorandum of qualification of the property you're buying plus the plans. So everything has to be obviously searched and properly checked before you put in place and agree signing any document and putting any money down.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Raquel, for answering that. That's very helpful and very clear. Now, obviously, you mentioned, as well as your expertise in the legal side of the actual purchasing process, you can help with visas and residency and relocation. And we've got a lot of questions on that today. For anybody who does have any real particular questions about their very personal circumstances, we'll, of course, share Raquel's details and put you in touch to get those detailed questions answered. But a few more general questions for you today, Raquel. I mean, Sophie mentioned it in her Q&A about advice, you know, on driving and if they can getting a car when customers relocate. David's asked this question. James has asked this question. There's lots of you that have asked this question. What do customers need to do about driving licenses? If they've got a UK license, what do they need to do about getting a Spanish license?
Well, yeah, but this is a very specific question we get on a daily basis. Well, actually, you can drive with your UK license up to 6 months, but obviously, if you're going to be spending more than 90 days within 180 days, you need to exchange your driving license. At the moment, situation for driving licenses are being negotiated in doing a test or not doing a test. The documents that needs to be provided, it's a medical certificate obtained by a medical center in Spain, photograph and the original of your UK licenses. Now, after the 1st of January, to be honest with you, at the moment, it's in a loophole, the situation, because still British government is negotiating with the Spanish government about whether English citizens has to go through a test, it will be in English, to validate their English license after driving 6 months in Spain for the Spanish one. Obviously, they will lose the UK one, which, to my understanding and to my best advice to all my clients, I would say that if you get an international driving license, that it will be actually the best choice to go forward. But obviously, that will depend very much the situation of the driving license, of course, that you also obtain the residencia card as well once you become resident in Spain.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Raquel, and I hope that answers those questions. Now, bank accounts. I know we've often talked about this, Raquel. Andrew's asked a question about this. Bernie's asked questions about this. I think there's a few other people out there as well who've asked. Can you give us just a bit of background, everything to do with bank accounts? You know, how early do customers need to open them? Can they open a bank account whilst they're still in the UK? Do they need to put a deposit immediately in that bank account? How can you support? As much information as you can share on bank accounts, I think would be very helpful to answer all of the questions.
Of course, okay. Yes, I understand. Well, I mean, to start with, a Spanish bank account, you have to understand that you will be opening a bank account as a non-resident to start with. I mean, whether obviously later on you will become resident or not, you need then to change your bank account into a resident status if you're going to become resident. If you're going to buy a property and come to Spain as a tourist, then obviously your bank account will remain non-resident. Difference between non-resident and bank accounts, bank charges. That's of course is logic. I mean, you need to be careful when you send money directly to your Spanish bank account. It's a non-resident bank account because the bank charges are quite high. So that's why I have to bring here commenting and bringing to the scene that using a smart will be fantastic to use smart to exchange your money and closing the deal with them before sending any money, because as I said, the bank charges will be very high in a non-resident bank account. So there are different type of bank accounts, whether they say, oh, we don't charge here, we don't charge there. Sooner or later, more or less, all the Spanish banks are regulated by the Bank of Spain. So sooner or later down the line, whether they will not charge anything when you open a bank account, in some other concept of services they will offer, they will try to make some money, of course, whether in transactions, internet access services, maintenance of the bank account. I mean, for example, Santander, they charge 20 euros per quarter per bank account, non-resident bank account, just for the maintenance. I mean, there are many other options, like Caixa, Santander, Sabadell. The majority of them, they don't ask to start with, for example, coming back to Sabadell or Santander, they don't ask you for any funds to be deposited to start with, as far as you're still coming from the UK. Other nationalities, I know they're asking for a minimum of 50 euros, but very much depends on the bank. What you need to be informed, if you're going to be liaising with the bank directly, it's what are the bank charges when sending money, if you're not going to be using a company like Smart, for example, and what are the costs of the maintenance of a bank account. I mean, we always advise our clients to have that Spanish bank account even before they are coming. This is very important. I mean, if you're coming as a tourist to Spain, which is an important question as well, which you can spend up to 90 days within 180 days. Crossing borders, for sure, you're going to be asked the fly in and out ticket, because the officer has to make sure you're not exceeding the limit. They may ask you for to prove that you got a Spanish bank account. I'm not saying for sure 100%, but they may ask you, because it happened to one of my clients that they did, showing that they had some money in a Spanish account to cover the cost of their stay. And they may ask you as well for the NI number, which happened to another client I have, and they ask you crossing borders for this. So as I mentioned before, really, really important, two things before traveling to Spain that sooner or later, if you're going to rent or buying a property in Spain, you're going to need, yes or yes, is the NI number and a Spanish bank account. And of course, hiring a lawyer like us and prepare the power of attorney to do this on your behalf before even you're coming to Spain.
Thank you, Raquel. And that leads really nicely onto my next question. James asked this early on in the session today. In terms, we've got a lot of people on the session who want to relocate permanently to Spain, and a lot of people who are looking at that as retirement. So they're not planning on working when they're going out to Spain. So a lot of people looking at non-lucrative visa options. When in the buying process should people be thinking about visas? Do they need to be out in Spain and applying for visas once they're in Spain, or do they need to be starting that from the UK or their other home country?
Yes, I am in contact with the Spanish consulate on a daily basis, because I've got many clients applying for visa. There are different types of visas you can apply depending on if you're retiring to Spain or working in Spain. But to be 100% clear on what are the steps, because this is coming in a very often email question to myself. What are the steps I need to follow to become resident in Spain? And how should I do this with regards to timing? I always explain to my client that this should be divided in 3 steps, and you should follow always these steps in order to be very efficient with the timing. First of all, you want to buy a property in Spain and become resident. then obviously you have to choose the property you want to buy. You need to get to know a little bit the area. I mean, not many people are in the situation that Justin mentioned before, that they knew the area and they bought virtually. They need to know whether they're buying, which area. Many people are unsure whether they will like it, etc. So first of all, how do you plan to become resident in Spain? So the first step will be, you should come as a tourist. You've got up to 90 days, because some people mix up the COVID restrictions with traveling restrictions with the Brexit, and I'm not able to travel to Spain, or I've got more restrictions because of the Brexit. It's not true. Brexit has not changed the situation for property buyers, for UK, for British citizens. It hasn't changed at all. It has been really the COVID restrictions who have changed the conditions and the situation to come to buy a property in Spain. So, first step, you come to choose a property, because actually one of the boxes of the application for the visa is where are you going to be living in Spain. Maybe the situation of the property that you're going to buy falls for other reasons. Doesn't matter, but at least you got an idea. You just know whether you're going to be renting or where you're going to be buying. So you got 90 days, up to 90 days to come to Spain, which I mentioned before. I advise you strongly to have already the NI number and the bank account you will need for absolutely everything. Even putting a foot in Spain, you will need that. And that will be before coming to Spain. So you come to Spain, you got up to 90 days as a tourist, you choose the property, either by renting or buying. You get back to the UK, yes, because obviously you don't have the visa. The visa, it's applied in the Spanish consulate, depending on where you live. If you are close to Manchester or close to London, because it depends on the county you live, you belong to one consulate or the other. And you have to be in England. And if you've got children, even if they're minors and you're moving with them, they also need a visa. Every person needs a visa in the passport. So you need to get back to the UK and you already have a property to rent, or you're going to pay a deposit on a property to buy. So for the application of the visa, you need to gather when you get back to the UK, because all these documents have to be no more than 3 months old. So you get back to the UK and then you have to put together a criminal record certificate and the acro.police.co.uk, GP certificate, which I can send you the sample of it, because I've got it, as I said, I speak to the Spanish consulate on a daily basis. Medical certificate from a Spanish private health, which we can supply as well. Marriage certificate if you're married. Birth certificate if your children are minors. If not, criminal records. And then financial means. The financial means that you have to provide a letter from your bank or any other institution which confirms that you got money up to 27,000 for one of you, one of the head, which is the head of the family, can be the wife or the spouse, and 7,000 euros per year, 27,000 per year for the first year, and 7,000 euros for the other members of the family, wife or husband or children. So it's not difficult. I mean, you just need guidance. It's like I guide all my clients in this 30-minute Zoom consultation or video phone call. I guide them through the whole process. It's not difficult at all to get them. The documents needs to be apostille, which I offer the guidance as well, how to do it, quite simple as well. And once you get the visa, and I'm not going to extend very much on this because I'm minded about the time. Once you get the visa is for 3 months. You never ever have to apply for any other visa again. This visa is for 3 months, but you got 1 month to get back to Spain, which is the third step. Second step was to obtain the visa. Then you come back to Spain with your visa. You got 1 month once you have collected the visa from the Spanish consulate, because you need to get back to collect it when it's approved. Normally it takes 1 week, 10 days. And then you come back to Spain with your visa, and this was when we complete the third step, which is to put the fingerprint and attend to your closer they close a police station to put the fingerprint in the police station appointment we will get for you, and that the conclusion is done. I mean, the whole process is done. This residency card is for 1 year. You have to renew it from Spain. You don't need to get back to England or to the Spanish consulate anymore. As I said, the visa is only obtained once, the first time, and then you have to renew for another 2 years. And the last renewal is for the 5 years, and that's the last one. You don't need to renew it again. So that's the process, divided in 3 steps. That's my recommendation for you to follow. Because if you come to Spain without looking for any property or anything, I mean, you still can do it virtually, of course. If you are very sure about what you want, because there are many clients that they are definitely sure that they have been before and they know what they want, then you can just do it, jump the first step and go directly to the visa application, which will help all the way through and apply for the visa, gathering all the paperwork.
That's fantastic, Raquel. Thank you so much for clearing that up. I've got time for one last quick question, and then I'm conscious that I want to let people, get on with their Saturdays today. So one last question for you, Raquel. Can you just explain again about the NIE number, what people need, how they get that?
Yes, the NI number is a foreign identification number which does not determine whether you are resident or non-resident in Spain. Spanish authorities, Spanish institutions, they will not, once you are in Spain, they will not ask you normally for your passport. They will ask you, which the passport is important for getting the NI number. We need actually legalized copy of passport for obtaining the NI number. The NI number will be registered in the Spanish tax authorities. So once you got the NI number, it doesn't mean you become resident for tax reasons. No, nothing to do with that. But this NI number will be your identification as a foreigner, non-Spanish, for everything you're going to be doing in Spain. Opening a bank account, signing a rental contract, buying a property in Spain, absolutely everything. This identification number will be requested from any institution to proceed with any application. For example, driving licenses as well. Without the NI number, you cannot do it. Registration in the town hall for the final step of the fingerprint, you also need the NI number. So this NI number is an A4 form, which the police station will assign you a number, which is your code registration number in Spain, a part of your passport.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Raquel. That's been really, really helpful. I feel like we could talk all day, as with all of the panelists. There's so much to cover here. A couple of people have asked some specific questions. I think there's been a question in about financial circumstances and things like that. I'm sorry if we've not been able to cover everything today, but we will put you all in touch with Raquel to get your specific queries answered. So thank you very much for that, Raquel. Lastly, and very quickly, before we sign off today, I just wanted to introduce you to our Property Guides team. All of the colleagues here work with us on a daily basis and work with you, the buyers, to support you. We've got Neha on the line with us today. Neha is the specialist who does cover Spain. So really quickly, Neha, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself and just give the listeners today a bit of an explanation about how you and your team can directly help them.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Hannah. Morning, everyone. So at Property Guides, obviously alongside our guides and newsletters that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, we can also help you put you in touch with all the right contacts throughout your whole purchasing journey. So this includes the golden 3 contacts. So that's the trusted agent, solicitor, and then currency exchange. But alongside that as well, we have a whole host of other contacts as well. So that includes things like health insurance, financial advisors, and removals as well, just to name a few. So if you do call through to any of us at the Property Guides team, we'll just find out a bit more about your plans and see who we can get you in touch with to help you with your plans.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Neha. And obviously at Property Guides, we've touched on it a couple of times today. We've been doing a survey of all of our buyers who are looking in Spain at the moment. Today, we've obviously had Sophie representing South Costa Blanca. We've had Justin focusing on Costa del Sol. Can you give us any indication of the other areas that are mainly British buyers are looking to purchase?
Yeah, so Costa Blanca and Costa del Sol are the top two areas, with Costa Almeria and Costa Calida not too far behind as well. So yeah, we can also, obviously with British buyers looking at all different places, we can also recommend agents in those areas, including the islands as well. So we'll be happy to help.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Neha. I won't keep anybody much longer. Just a couple of final things to say from my side. We've got various different webinars available. In a couple of weeks on Saturday, the 5th of June, we are focusing on a financial session. So again, we'll touch a little bit on budgeting and currency in that session. And crucially, we'll look at things like your tax position, wealth management, inheritance, and things like that in that session. You know, what you might want to do about your pension if you are one of the customers who is retiring out to Spain. So if you're interested in that, do have a look at the Your Overseas Home website to register for that. We've also got a number of on-demand sessions that you can view at your leisure. We did a fantastic session last weekend, again with Raquel, where we talked really in detail about those visa processes, all the different types of visas available for you. We've got sessions focusing on getting surveys on your properties in Spain, what you might want to think about healthcare. So again, do have a look at the Your Overseas Home website to think about that. I've got all of the contact details on screen now for any of the speakers who spoke in today's session. We'll also get these over to you via email, so don't worry if you don't have a chance to scribble them down now. We will send all of this out via email, along with a recording of today's session if you want to share that with family or friends, or refresh your memory on anything that was discussed. Last thing, we're just going to pop a link up to the Property Guides website on the screen at the moment. That's where you can go to download any of those guides, subscribe to our newsletters, read any of those interesting blogs and articles and pieces like that. So last thing for me to say this morning is just thank you again to all of our fantastic panelists. It's been such a wonderful sort of array of topics that we've covered today, really useful insight and local knowledge that you've shared. So thank you for giving us your Saturday morning, and thank you to all of the customers who've joined us, whether you're listening in live, whether you're catching up with this on demand. It's been great to have you with us and great to help you start to think about your buying journey for Spain. So I will leave you all to your Saturday morning this morning. Thank you again, and whether you're buying a holiday house, whether you're relocating permanently, we wish you a very happy move to Spain. Bye everyone.